Yeah.
Trustee Geis,
Here.
Assessor,
Here.
Birthday boy.
Birthday boy. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Great, and then we'll go with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And then we'll start with the in-person. Oh, sorry, Claire Golenberg. Sorry, that was we just skipped over. My fault.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Claire Goldenberg, and I've been a resident of Lisle Township since 2009, anyways. I complained in the past about how the calendar does not reflect any Jewish holidays, and I see here you're about to proclaim that this is Hispanic month here in the township. So I will lodge again my complaint about your discrimination against the Jewish people. I don't really understand, again, why you choose to ignore us. Again, there are a few Jewish people here in Lisle Township. In fact, I think your attorney is. Okay, the other thing I wanted to say is that I've noticed over the last few months, again, that the township board seems very reluctant to spend any of our taxpayers' money. I know your budget is set. You seem very keyed up on not spending any of the money. And again, still really confused as to why you guys decided to spend your overage last year on a building that contained a brewery, which you were never going to be able to utilize or space on your own. So again, just wanted to put that out in the ethers again, because if the goal for buying a building was to ever utilize that space for the township, I'm confused as to how that is ever going to happen. Okay, that's all what I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then online, I had none, and I'll just refresh this. We have none here.
That link was not working.
It's working.
Okay.
So if you go to the hard coded of that link, it works. Then we have the update from the 708 board, President Yoshi Yamanaka.
Good evening, everyone. Yoshi Yamanaka reporting on behalf of the Lisle Township Community Mental Health Board. Later this month, our board will be selecting the final grantees for this fiscal year. We shall be dispersing $850,000 to support 14 or more programs which provide behavioral and mental health services for the residents of Lisle Township. The legislators in Springfield have recognized the pressing need for additional funding for mental health programs. Accordingly, the legislature has eliminated the P-child restrictions for the community mental health boards, such as ours. Currently, 25 additional agencies have expressed interest in obtaining grants from our mental health board. Because of the great demand for additional services, it is likely that our 708 board will be requesting an increased tax levy to support critically needed funding. Any question?
So from a numerical perspective, you would, we would expect that you would propose a number of what you think would be necessary from a levy
We
perspective.
have not met and discussed this as a board. I believe in incrementally ramping up, so possibly requesting 1.5 million next year. And we'll see how much of the 14 plus. We've got 39 agencies that have applied this year. So I don't know how many of them will qualify for funding next year. But it is quite likely that it will exceed 1.5 million. Of course, not all of the 1.5 million will be dispersed for agencies, because we do need an operating budget, which heretofore has been averaging about 31,000 per year. Now that we've hired a grant administrator, and her salary is about 35,000, I think. So we expect our administrative costs to be more in the range of 60,000 instead of 31,000.
Trustee McGovern.
Is anyone certified to write grants within your board right now?
Certified. We're not applying for grants. Our grant administrator, she administers the grants that we are dispersing.
Okay. And she's part-time.
Yes, she is. We estimate 20 hours per week. This woman has 14 hours of 14 years of experience working for HUD.
20 hours a week, every week, or is that just like as needed basis? I was just curious.
It's as needed. It really,
Yeah.
the hours fluctuate pretty wildly. And especially this first year, it's gonna be pretty heavy because we've got,
So much stuff, yeah.
right, and we've got quite a bit of backlog. We had hoped to push out the funding beginning of July 1, but we didn't get around to it until August the 1st at the earliest. And now that we're in the supplemental phase, that money won't be pushed out until November. So we're in a catch-up phase. And we've got a lot of business to do before January, because January begins the new funding cycle.
And Yosh, you're looking to find new board members. So if anybody knows of any volunteers that would be interested in serving, the application is on the website and goes directly to you all.
Thank you for that reminder. You're welcome to apply. And
You
you
just never know what I'm gonna do. There's a lot of weeks left before November 14th.
The due date is November 23rd or 24th.
I think so.
Okay. Thank you, Yosh, and thank you for coming to see us.
Thank you, Greg.
You'll excuse me.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, number 6 is discussion and possible action on the previous year's financial reporting into Thomson and Reuters software. And Kelly, would you like to give us a report on how that's gone and from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So, fiscal year 24 data has all been input into the accounting CS Thomson Reuters software. We're currently in fiscal year 25. So all that's been updated as well. I know there was some questions about wanting some of that previous data. We've pulled all of that data out of QuickBooks into PDF and Excel version, so that they're easily searchable. And then QuickBooks is still accessible to look back at as well, but we did pull out all of that data out so that it is available and just not in the system.
Thank you. And then Highway Commissioner Young.
I guess I don't think the board has ever informed me that you were going to switch over to commercial. When Wes presented, he said you could go from QuickBooks, your software, back to Quick.
I don't think that that's accurate. I know there was a couple different meetings and I spoke at the one, I think it was maybe the budget meeting where we had a further discussion, because I know there was a lot of questions about the new software. It was either here, it was on Zoom, and I can go back and look. Where I did talk to the board, I think trustee Geis had a few questions too, and she was the one who had it on the agenda, and so we talked through that. I apologized to the board that we hadn't had a further discussion like since that proposal meeting, and that was before we implemented anything into that new software.
If you go back and look at where Wes presented this, I can play it for you if you like.
I'm gonna say maybe we should, because
Sure.
I think recollections
Yeah.
are not necessarily accurate, at least from my standpoint. I do remember the conversation, in my mind. I think the intention was, if at some point in the future, you decided this wasn't the route, is that information,
While you're,
can you take that? information?
Trustee Geist,
while you're pulling that up, I think the concern that I had when we talked about this before was that if we decided we weren't happy with this new software, or that we could go back to QuickBooks. It was never our understanding that if we went back to QuickBooks, that it would sever the relationship. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I don't think it was clear that we would not have access to the historical data, which is, I think, really important to be able to go back and retrieve and to be able to compare it. But you're saying that it's been extracted into an Excel format.
Correct. It's extracted into an Excel format, so it is searchable, and we did fiscal years, I believe, 18 through 23. And then obviously the audits are available as well, but we have all of that income statement, all of the vendor history, all of the bills that were paid out of QuickBooks for that 5-year period. And then we have a 1-year historical data in there to compare it to this current fiscal year.
and all the board members have been sent those files for the 5 years previously for the PDFs and the Excel spreadsheet. So you all have the ability to search as well. Trustee McGovern,
Can you remind me of the expense for that conversion?
It was included in the, yes, in the fee, yeah, in our proposal.
trustee Robinson,
Yeah, but I remember, my understanding was that there was gonna be a conversion. One of the things is we wanted, was gonna give us, the board members, more access, our own access, our own customized access, and I've worked with Jacob.
And procedure one process.
so can you pause that, Highway Commissioner Young?
Pardon me?
Can you please pause that, because we're listening to trustee Robinson here? Thank you, trustee Robinson.
Then we have our customized views of the information, so I've leveraged that, and it's a lot more effective system for me, as a board member. So I remember the discussion, but migrating, and here's what the benefits are gonna be of the new system, so that was my
You
understanding.
remember the discussion?
Yep.
At a board meeting.
And I believe it was a board meeting.
It was, because we did discuss about the benefits of then the trustees being able to have access, and that you would have real-time information of, you know, income statements, expenses versus budget.
We did. We
Trustee
did.
Geist,
But I think that there was still the question, and I think that was the concern, is being able to go back and go through QuickBooks and retrieve the data. Because here's the thing too, what if this relationship, the next administration may make a completely different decision, right? And now they're kind of locked into this software without the ability to revert
No,
because that data's been pulled. Can you clarify that?
yeah, and we had talked about that at a meeting too, because I think that was the thing we were remembering is if you guys decided after the year, because our engagement letter is for a year, that you didn't want to continue with Lauterbach and email, that data could go back into QuickBooks.
and Highway Commissioner Young,
You also said that all of the QuickBook history would be going into the software. That's not the case. How are you sure that won't go? It'll
Right.
get back? How are you sure you're gonna run the same situation?
I'm not sure I follow.
What
You
he's
weren't
saying
able
is,
to transfer all of the history from QuickBooks into your software.
So it's not a question of we can't. There's not a button they can push that pulls all this information and lays it out exactly in the new software. Part of the reason we proposed and ultimately transitioned things to Thompson's ACS is that QuickBooks is not a multi-fund software. It's not built for governments. It's not set up or designed to handle your guys' account needs. So we put this into a multi-fund application, which means the account numbers change to a degree. You may not see it because you code, based on the last 4 digits, but the setup is not the same. So there's not a button you can click and all this information comes from here to here. The historical information that the team has posted for fiscal 24 was a combination of imports after heavily modifying information or transactions to align with the mapping structure of the other software. So it's not a case of it can't do it. It can, but it's a fairly labor intensive process. So Kelly and the team's recommendation to maintain the historical data within QuickBooks, because it's still accessible to whoever may need it, was the most efficient recommendation. Now, in addition to QuickBooks still being there, still accessible, still containing historical information, the team pulled out that historical data in Excel, in Adobe, which are all searchable. It's all searchable data. Obviously, it's not a database, but you can still see the historical activity. Kelly, myself, the team, we've helped, been a part of transitions to dare venture a guess, don't hold me to it, 12, 13 different software applications. We don't just use ACS, but we don't recommend QuickBooks for any unit of government because it's not multiple software. I bring that up because we do this for a living, and the ones that we've been involved in, and we ever brought in 5, 6, 7, 8 years worth of historical data. It's not regular, it's not common, that doesn't make it right or wrong, but all of that information is still there, still accessible, still see it, still have access to it.
So the question is, how does it go back?
What, so, and you.
Highway
represented
commissioner.
that you would transfer all of the historical data.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a representation.
but then the question still remains, if we can't pull it effectively, if we can't migrate it effectively,
If the
it's labor
intention-
intensive, what happens? How do we go back? How do we take, because the format is completely different, how do we take then the information that over the last year and put that back into QuickBooks? Should the change happen? I'm not saying it's happening, but we do need to know that, and I think it's important for planning purposes.
It would be an important fact, but again, it takes time and energy to do
You
so.
said the history would come too. Now, can the history come, or is it just because it's too expensive to do?
No,
Well-
it has come.
Well-
As Kelly stated, she's moved over.
The last
fiscal
year.
24.
What year?
Right, he's asking what the history of that.
And there's been you said that we could do it for a price. So there's 2 ways that this could happen as well, is that if we wanted to per year, isn't it 5,000 per year if we wanted to pay?
Yes.
And
Is that
then
for
the
inputting
other,
Into QuickBooks?
right, and the other option is that,
for-
For inputting the historical data into ACS,
Into what?
into ACS.
Into ACS?
Mhm.
and the other option is that frankly, couldn't somebody on the highway commissioners, or the highway commissioner himself, do the input?
Okay.
We're paying a lot of money.
So
And then it's.
there's 2
Wait,
options.
so then is it $5,000 a year for each year that we are with you to put that information back into QuickBooks?
No.
If the relationship
I
comes
think
to a
if
close?
it came to that point, as soon as your new person in place, we could provide the data to and make it, get it back into QuickBooks, should you choose. to go
Okay.
back to QuickBooks.
So we just have to think about those choices, right? Because we're leaving in the next administration,
Yeah.
Right.
Clerk Polowitz?
I think this is where the confusion is, because quite honestly, the software is not extremely user friendly. It's really hard to pull anything out of. We did get some training on it, but it is a little bit difficult to pull. And when we saw the committee questions for the finance committee, it did say, I just lost it, that you do have 5 staff members that are proficient in QuickBooks. And that was during the interview period. So we thought, when we all read this, we thought, great, there's people on there who do know QuickBooks, because we were under the impression that you were going to, and I think you said it, you're going to push for us to use your software, but we didn't have to use your software. And then when it went further, there was a question at one of the meetings that stated, I think Ed asked, I'm sorry, Commissioner Young asked, is it your intent to switch us over to the new software? And you said yes. And I think you did say that it is a matter of just pushing a button to pull in all the history. It wasn't limited to the last year, it was the history of, and that's what, then it's like, well, okay, this is a software that, people do use. It's a well-known software. It's gonna pull in the history. We're going to be able to pull everything up. So, and now we're here where it's hard to pull anything up. We don't have the history, and we see that there's an issue getting the history in. So, God forbid if we want to get it out of there, it's probably the same thing's gonna happen. So we thought you were okay with QuickBooks. And now we know you're absolutely not okay with QuickBooks, right?
So I don't think it was ever a matter of being okay with QuickBooks. There are staff members on our team, as I had said, that are proficient in QuickBooks. It was always in our proposal that we were converting the software out of QuickBooks into accounting CS. That was included into the proposal and the engagement letter that was signed to convert the software.
Thank you, Kelly. Trustee Robinson?
I think I was just gonna iterate the same point. My understanding was that we're gonna migrate a lot of value for the board members, for everyone who touches the software. QuickBooks, none of us could get access to it, right? But now we can get access to it. And you've trained, if you invest the time to learn it, it's a lot more functional system for each individual role, in the township, so.
Let me say to your point too, if you guys are having trouble with like accessing things or pulling up data, like we would be happy to do additional training. That's part of it too, is obviously we know the system, and so we'd be happy to do additional training if there's things that you guys want to see, if there's things that you guys are having trouble with pulling up, there's custom reports that we can make. So if there's something that you're continuously looking at on a day-to-day basis, or that you are pulling up like consistently, that we can create a report so you can just hit print and see that information.
And what our rules say is that you can go around twice, and then, and really it's each person goes around once and then the second time. So, Highway Commissioner Young, you're more than that. So Highway Commissioner Young?
Two things, several things. One, I'll play this one going, but that's true. You said it was one of them. Of the townships in DuPage County, 4 of them is good. The picture population of people who are knowledgeable to the far exceed anybody knows. That's it. DOI offers classes. So to sit there and say it's not very good software for townships, I have to disagree. It works fine, and you may have things that you need, think are important. But the organization, the townships, all of the townships in Illinois suggested this because they offer free. Now let me play.
Take your data back over to QuickBooks. The information within the system is not foilable, I guess you could say. Outside of that personnel bucket, there's some donation information. But we take security seriously. As I mentioned, I don't know if you're on the call yet. In the beginning, we're going to do a lot of username and passwords that are there. Because without access, we can't start doing work, especially in short-term payroll needs. But we're going to have to create and utilize usernames and passwords for each individual who needs access to different functions. So we can track and see who's at it, how, who's doing what. As far as remote work, again, kind of see the setup. I think we're utilizing QuickBooks Desktop. A lot of work we're going to be doing that's not deposits can be done remotely. It doesn't need to be direct access to the system. We do utilize Excel quite a bit for various worksheets and or two pieces of the process.
Yeah,
that are
that's the
easy.
problem with QuickBooks Desktop is you can't access it remotely. And it doesn't look like,
Again, can you let Russ finish? Thank you.
Yeah, so we're familiar with the inability to access that remotely without some sort of VPN, remote desktop, screen connect, screen share type utility. The software we do use allows us to take a data export essentially and drop it in, and we can do a bunch of work within that software, and then take the data back over to QuickBooks. We're probably gonna have to utilize some of that just because they have. Unless you guys have that on me.
So, thanks for playing that back. My recollection was not those specific words. The software is capable of doing that. I think in this particular situation, it's not apples to apples. And what we've set up here from the new software, that particular functionality isn't there.
When did that change? I mean, you proposed that. I mean, that's what you envisioned, I assume. And how did that change it? And why wasn't that discussed here?
To be honest with you, this is the first time I've sat in front of the board and had discussions at this level, with the in-depth details of how the functionality of the software works. Our intention was to take the township's data, put it into a software that is designed to handle the functions that you guys have, specifically with multiple funds. Make things more efficient, more accessible. It is cloud-based. This is to take you forward, not keep you static in terms of software. And now I know you said the township officials recommend this software. It is a good, low-cost software solution that is not overly complicated. But I can tell you most of the townships that I've worked with, have experience with, that Kelly's worked with, have managed to make QuickBooks the most complicated accounting setup I've ever seen. So much so that there are some townships that have 15 different versions of QuickBooks, one for each fund, and they cut checks to themselves on a monthly basis because they're allocating expenses across funds.
I'm sure you could do that with your.
So Highway Commissioner,
And we
thank
would never recommend that you write 15 checks to pay one comment bill. The intention here was not to disrupt operations, create tension, not do things the right way. It was to move things forward efficiently, effectively, avoid year-end issues like you've experienced here over the last several months. It's to be better into the future. It's not to hinder you from seeing historical activity. It's not to prevent you from having the data you need to do your jobs. Our intention is to make the data better, more accessible. It's regretful that we're in the situation talking about should we move back or not. But I do think it's important to know that our intentions are all positive and not to prevent you from seeing this work.
thank you. And Attorney Sackler, is this even something that is in the purview of the board to decide?
But to mandate the type of accounting software that our hired accountants use,
Right.
I don't, probably not, no. I don't think so.
So it's not even a likely option of things that the board can fully decide.
They agreed to, the board agreed to a contract and to an agreement with them. And
Instead, they were gonna transfer it back.
that they could transfer it back. Sure.
That's what this.
I-
you just
Sure.
read that.
Okay, so again,
That's what I'm saying.
people
My
need to
point
raise their
is-
hands. Thank
To
you.
dictate what the accountants do and how they, as long as they're doing it accurately or, you know, et cetera. You know, really it falls on the treasurer to make some of those decisions as on the minutia in the day-to-day on top of that. So I don't know legally,
Minutia.
So again, we need to raise our hands, and I
Let's-
saw trustee McGovern's hand, or sorry, attorney Sickler, did you have anything else?
Yeah, it's not minutia, I understand, I miss, that's not a good way to, thank you for pointing that out. But some of the operational day-to-day type of software, some of those items, I would be remiss to advise this board if it had authority to direct a contractor to how it, how it operates. Especially if it's a hired outside accountants, they're professionals. There's a issue with performance or something, that's a different issue, but how they operate is separate.
Well, it's
I-
like so.
Yeah.
Trustee McGovern, and
This is-
one of the board rules is that the first time you speak, you get 3 minutes, the second time is 2 minutes. So trustee McGovern,
For the sake of discussion, and upon hearing and, the feeling that I have as a trustee was that we felt that it would be transparent. We didn't see any problems. We do see some hurdles as far as transparency goes. I don't believe we've all had the level of training, but yeah, when new boards come in and out and the highway department uses QuickBooks, it makes it harder to compare apples to apples. And I just feel like we have been a little misled. As far as how easily that would have been done. So it's not that the numbers are, not looking good. I think there's been some professionality matters that have come up. Maybe, in error, but yeah, we're worried about this relationship from the transparency dynamic. And I don't know, I don't even know, I don't know enough financially to do this, but I just know that I want every trustee to know exactly how to get in there and how to work it, how to talk to other trustees about books too, from other townships, because we tend to do that a little bit to build what we're going to do, what we want to do, by example, from other townships. So no, it's, I have to admit, it's confusing to me.
okay, thank you, trustee McGovern, and I know that I received training. I know that every trustee at least had the offer of training, and there was a time set aside for everyone to have any training and times. Anytime I've ever asked for any help, you all have done a fabulous job of giving us time and help and answering all my questions. So thank you. And I know a number of people have, so please reach out if you have any questions or anything. I saw trustee Geist hand up.
Yeah, my hand was up before you spoke, actually. What I wanted to say is, I don't feel misled. I don't think we're misled. I think we just had a communication gap. So I don't think there was anything nefarious that happened. I think it was just a miscommunication gap. And it happens, right? And we've had a lot of chaos, to no fault of the board. And so I think that probably has just made just some gaps in communication. I'm hoping that you can meet with, Highway Commissioner Young and resolve his concerns so that we can move past this. I would also beg to differ that this is, and I appreciate you retracting that comment that this is, minutia, because it's not, because as a board, we have a fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers, and when we approve expenses, when we approve, the expense of the firm, it included these things. So while we don't want to dictate how they do their work, because we're not accountants, that's their lane, it's not ours, so I respect that. It is important for us to understand what we're paying for and what the cost is to the taxpayers to make something work in the way that we needed it to work historically, and how it would work moving forward should we decide at some point to make a change, right? So this is not minutia. These are important questions, especially when it's $5,000 a year. So unless anybody in this room can open this window and throw $5,000 out the window, I would not say that this is light matters. So I'm hoping that we can get this sorted out in a way that is, and report back at the next meeting what the solution is for him to be able to access this historical data along with current data so that he has a clear vision of past and present. So if you could make that a goal, it would be really appreciated.
Yeah, and we can have a meeting offline.
Well, I suggested that you give me just each month to dump into, like you take your software, just dump it into QuickBooks and send it to you. You can't do that. And I would like a map of when you went from QuickBooks to where you are.
Well, ultimately, our goal here was win-win and improvements on what's done in the past. And providing consistency and. Also working with you. I can see that there is not a whole lot of satisfaction. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like moving forward, we're gonna double entry all of your activity into QuickBooks and into ECS, which is the alternative software. But if that is the ultimate goal, I think we're probably having a different discussion than probably that.
There's scripts
So-
that you can run
so-
to do. There's a
So
script
we
that
need
you
to
run.
raise our hands
There's
in
a
order
script that
to
we-
have
that you
this.
can run that would
Trustee Geist.
automatically that
Trustee
get
Geist.
the fields that you want. If you guys could be, that would be great. If you were in the leadership capacity and were directing this, I wouldn't have to keep interrupting. Thank you. Thank you. We could do that and move on to the next agenda.
So the rules are to raise one's hand. Thank
You-
you,
You talk
trustee
over people
Geist and
consistently,
trustee,
So
my job to.
to talk over people and be disrespectful,
So there is a whole lot of appreciation for what you all have done, and I think from a efficiency perspective, nobody would expect for things to be double entered. Or from the clarification perspective, it's 5,000 in past years, and there is no expectation for two softwares to be used. Am I correct, Kelly? Thank you, Kelly and Wes. And in the board rules, it says there's 2 times when people speak per agenda item.
I only spoke
And
once.
so I understand it, and
Got
so
it.
clerk call it.
So, I just for clarification, I did look at the engagement letter and there's nothing there about
It's
that.
in our proposal.
Uh,
That was
okay,
attached to
okay,
the fee for the.
Cause I'm looking at the
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah.
Aside from that, part of the reason we were excited about this software is that we could look at the history. I don't know if you know or not, but we've had a lot of fiscal discrepancies through the past. And we were all excited that we could, as trustees and clerk and the board, be able to look at the software to be able to pull up, what did we spend on this last year? Like just click on the name and see the history of it in the past 5 years. So that gets us before the pandemic, that gets us before our term. Because there's been a lot of payments that shouldn't have been paid, and a lot of unapproved payments. So to us, that was really important. So to me, it wasn't necessarily, I personally don't care if it's QuickBooks or the other software. I'll learn it, I'll hound you till I can learn it and that, but the history to me is so important. If I want to look up what did Debbie Polowitz get paid, in the last 5 years, I could pull up all those bills. Or what did we spend in legal bills, or what did we spend here? That to me is really important, to look on an Excel spreadsheet or to look on a PDF as well as do it on a software. We're spending a lot for this, as far as accounting services. And that is something that I think we felt was going to be very transparent to us, that it turns out that it's not. So I want to. We're hoping that we
we're
can
gonna make a
still
motion
get
to
this.
suspend the rules so that we can
Yeah,
continue the
I'm good,
conversation.
I'm good on that one.
Okay, any other discussion for people that haven't gone through multiple times? And we really appreciate your time and understanding. Are there any motions
please.
that people want to make that are legal to make?
I'd like to make a motion.
Trustee Geist,
I'd like to make a motion to forward this to the next meeting so that they can have a conversation and work out a solution, especially based on what the Powell's just said. So I make a motion to, what is the word I'm looking for? Postpone this decision until the November.
is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Geist and trustee McGovern. Any other discussion? And a roll call vote?
Trustee Geist.
Yes.
Trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Page. Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
No. Okay, the motion passes, going to the next meeting. Next, we have discussion and possible action, or sorry, discussion and possible action regarding the direction to staff on accounting software. Is that going to be postponed to the next meeting?
That's the same thing, you can take it off the agenda.
Well, her specific words were to postpone the agenda item 6. So would you like to
I'll make
amend
a
that to
motion
be,
to postpone agenda item 6, and I'll make a motion to amend my motion. I'm like, I'll rescind my motion. I'll make a motion to postpone both items 6 and 7 on tonight's agenda to the November regular board meeting.
Second.
any other discussion? And a roll call vote?
Are we voting on the amendment? Or are we just voting on the,
I would
I
recommend,
I rescinded my amendment, so we don't have to vote on
Okay,
this.
why don't
I
we-
made a new amendment to postpone both decisions to the November.
we already approved the postponing of the one agenda, why don't you just move to postpone agenda item 7 as well? How about that? Just my recommendation. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So would you like to,
I'll make a motion to postpone agenda item number 7 to.
and a second?
Second.
Thank you, trustee McGovern and trustee Geist. Any other discussion? And a roll call vote?
trustee Geist,
Yes.
trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Page,
Yes.
trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
No. It is forwarded to the next meeting. Thank you. And then discussion and possible action for visual GA and GIS enterprises for 1,125. This is the same software that has been used since the beginning of it being used here in the township. It is just one person's license for it. This is what all of the GA information has been operating under.
I'll make a motion to approve visual GA to NJS Enterprises for $1,125.
Second.
Thank you, trustee McGovern and trustee Geist. Any other discussion? Trustee Robinson?
Two things. So this is giving us a second license?
No. It's just we're renewing this in the same thing that we've
This is
got.
an annual.
This is an annual fee.
Can I make a suggestion that it
Trustee
reads-
Geist?
Can I make a suggestion that it reads as a renewal so that it doesn't look like it's a new purchase?
Sure. It is just a renewal. Any other discussion? And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee McGovern,
Yes.
trustee Geist.
Yes.
Trustee Page.
Yes.
Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes. Motion passes. Discussion and possible action for Cedar Mountain Software Pantry Soft to total 1,375. This is a renewal of the same software that we have been using that you all already got a grant for. We did take off the client portal, so that it wouldn't be, and that was an additional $700. So this is the annual fee to have this software. Trustee Geist?
So is this the software that you gifted to the pantry the first year?
It is.
So when we did not approve that purchase, and so you made it as a donation, and we said, how are we going to cover this expense in subsequent years? Do you remember that conversation?
Of course.
Okay, so where is this being paid? What fund is this being paid out of? So we didn't approve the first purchase.
It's, again, you've gotten a grant to cover
So the
the
grant's
entire
covering this.
thing. Yes.
Moving forward.
Well, no, just that one year. We did get a grant in 2023 of $26,000 to
Well, wait a minute.
pay for that,
I
or
know, wait,
$2,600,
So
sorry.
you gifted it to the pantry, but it's coming out of a grant. So where did the gift go?
It's paid for.
Right. The actual purchase.
So she
itself.
actually didn't make the donation then, because it
Yes,
got covered by the
the
grant.
software itself was purchased and donated.
Yeah.
And then now we have to pay the yearly fee.
Yeah, that's what I-
The licensing fee, and I believe what she's saying is that is coming out of a grant.
So again, this should be worded as a renewal.
Agreed.
Have we received the renewal, the grant money?
Yes, you already received it.
Okay, great.
This is why we need
Well,
the,
I've been
5 months
asking
ago.
for a spreadsheet to show where grants are, where it's been spent,
been
how much
asking
is
for
still
that for-
outstanding, and I'm getting
for
nothing.
This, you
I
all
think
have
we've been asking
had
for
the
it.
money
No, we
for
don't have.
over
we
6
want a
months.
spreadsheet.
We want a
We want a
spreadsheet.
spreadsheet. It's
We've
very
asked for it
simple.
for 8 months and
You
each
have
month
a
that we've asked
spreadsheet
for it.
that
you
is
said we
closed
have it.
out.
We do
That is a
that.
closed
A
out.
detailed spreadsheet.
Thank you.
This has been closed out.
It's
You all
not
have
closed out
received the funding
Because we're
one
buying
at a
something,
time.
it's
and
not
didn't,
closed out.
you're not raising your hand.
Then I'll say
So
it
again, this has already been funded.
If it's closed
And
out, then we
any
don't have to approve
software
it.
generally costs something. Any and all software generally costs
But if
something,
it's
except
closed out, we
from,
shouldn't have to approve the spend.
you have to approve every spend. That's how your purchasing policy works. Clerk Hollowitz,
The point is that the spreadsheet, the item on the spreadsheet for this grant should not be closed out because we are now just approving the spend. Before we approved it in theory, now we're approving the spend. That's why we wanted a grant spreadsheet specific to, this is $26,000 that's going to go for this. This is when we applied for it on this date. This is all the responses that we've had. This is what they've asked for future.
Yes.
This is our invoice. This is our payment. We're approving it on this date,
Yes.
approving it on this date. We want all that information. So this doesn't have to happen. You could just say, refer to the spreadsheet.
Right.
And I would like it done without the assistance of the accountant or the attorney, because we do not need to incur additional fees for you to do the work that you should be doing as the township supervisor.
so again, this has already been closed out. We have received the funds. You already
Create
have
the
them, and
spreadsheet,
here
please.
is the spreadsheet as I'm sharing with you.
73,000.
This is for the things that we are still working on. We have already received and closed out
Itemize it.
all
Itemize
of
it.
them, and you have already approved every single
Don't
one of
approve
them.
This.
And you don't have to approve this, that's fine. But again, this is a renewal of a software that you all have been using for over a year at this
Supervisor
point.
Hewitt, your board has asked you repeatedly. to
And you
create
have a
of information.
spreadsheet.
And itemize, okay, I don't want to define itemization for you because I think that you're intelligent enough to understand that word. I want an itemized list. We all are asking for it. We're not being difficult. If your entire board is asking you for information, why will you not honor this request?
You have it. You have it. This
Clearly,
is,
Supervisor Hill, we are not satisfied with what you're telling us we have, okay? Your typing on a
Trustee
screen is
Page.
not good enough.
I'm not typing on the screen. This is what you all have had access to the entire time.
That is not an itemization.
This is again, things that
Three
have
line
already
items.
been approved.
3 line
Last-
items is not a spreadsheet itemization, Supervisor Hewitt.
Okay,
Nobody in
so
this room would say that that is an itemization of spend. 3 line items?
you all have approved every single one of
We
those
want a
spend
visual-
every
Yeah.
single time.
Get what you want.
Okay.
Don't approve it till you get what you
Well,
want.
Right.
I make a motion to,
Oops.
Well, I have
to-
a question.
what?
Trustee Page,
What budget line item is the $1,375 coming out of?
it is in Township Food Pantry expenses, because this gives us the data to make sure it's in 20-2616 is where it's coming from. There's $40,000 in the budget, and we are at having spent in food pantry expenses, $149.08 of the 40,000, 6 months in.
Yeah, the question isn't whether we approve the spends or not. The question is not whether the funds exist or not. The question and the request remains, please itemize each grant that was applied for and what items are coming under each grant that we are securing. Nobody's saying we didn't approve it. Nobody's saying we don't have the funds, but we want a visual of everything that's happening. And I don't think it's not too much to ask, and we're all asking for it.
And when we receive the money, if we receive. the
Yes,
money.
just make it clean, just a clean. if
We
you-
have
if you don't know
received
how to
the
use Excel-
money.
If you don't
We
know how to
can't
use
see that on
Excel, if you don't know how to use Excel, I know one of the staff members would be happy to help you. I would be happy to sit with you and help you, but we need this visual reference.
We have received the money in May.
This is weird obstinate disorder. I don't know what's
So
happening here.
this was
Yeah.
a list of where we received every purchase has been has entitled a
I'm a very
signature
articulate,
from
well-versed person.
each of
We
the
are not questioning
trustees.
the
If it's
fee. We're
over,
not questioning the approval. You
trustee
need
Geis,
a
you need to
visual reference.
raise your hand in order to be,
I make a
allowed
motion to
to
suspend
be
the rules
speaking.
for further discussion.
okay, and that requires 2/3 of a vote, if you want
Try
to
the
do,
second first.
so does. So do we have a second? Okay, the
Okay,
rules
then
are
I'll
not
make a motion to
suspended.
Postpone to the next meeting.
Okay, there's a first. Is there a second? So that means that there's not gonna be any way of tracking people that are coming in through the food pantry for the next month.
If we can't have a productive conversation about it, then I don't know how we can move past it.
Okay, so thank you for the first. Is there a second?
Trustee Robinson had his hand up.
Trustee Robinson,
I see the invoice is dated October 1st. What happens if we don't pay it?
we get turned off.
Within 30 days.
It's not gonna. We have to comment bill in July.
What is that?
So is there a second?
We should have discussed this sooner.
Okay, there's not a second. Is there another motion? Trustee Robinson,
I make a motion to pay it. I don't like to hold up vendors. And I don't like to lose services that we've already got. I know there's issues that you want to address relative to what has been approved and what hasn't been approved. I don't like to squeeze vendors, and I don't want to lose
That's the
services.
point. It's not.
They're not
vendor's fault, right?
gonna turn it off
The
in 30
vendors
days.
are,
They're not gonna turn it off in 30 days.
but I agree with what you just said.
So I
agree,
made a
they're not gonna
motion,
turn it
I made a
off.
motion.
thank you, trustee
I'll second.
Robinson. Thank you, trustee Page. Any other discussion? And a roll
Software
call
company
vote.
is not gonna turn off your user license for a 30-day late notice. They're not gonna do it. And this should have been brought to us. before
Trustee
it-
Geis. And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Robinson,
Yes.
trustee Page.
Yes.
Trustee McGovern,
Yes.
trustee Geis.
No.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes. Motion passes. Paying our bill. Discussion item 10, discussion and possible action for paying the past pass bill of $1,675. And this was with 3.5 years of past bills that were sent to us all at once. We have realized that two of the transponders had been changed over. And that's why the previous bill was paid. It was not paid in full.
What does that mean that the iPasses were switched over?
Meaning that they run out of juice after so much time. Their batteries have to be changed after so long. When you have an iPass, then you have to turn them in for a new one because they run out of juice. So that's what happens with iPass.
So when the green light doesn't go off when you go through, that wasn't an alert for
For
anybody?
3 years.
no, it was changed over. That's why they were changed. Because
Changed over? What does that mean? You got a new iPass? Is that what you said?
yes, the
So what happened
transpond,
to the old one? You turned it in
they were turned in.
and they never said there's a amount due?
Exactly. We got a bill of 3.5 years. And this has been,
Wow.
again,
Make a
there's-
motion to pay the $1,675 for the past
Second,
due iPass.
thank you, trustee
Yeah,
Geist
yeah,
and
yeah.
trustee Robinson. Any other discussion?
I just have to say, I feel we haven't
Clerk
gotten,
Holowitz?
we haven't gotten anywhere. You know, we thought we'd gotten to a place where we had a good purchasing policy and a good program in place. And I just feel like we haven't gotten anywhere because we're doing back the same things. You're pushed against the wall that you have to pay something without getting the information that you really want on anything. I said my piece.
Any other discussion? And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Geis,
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Motion passes to pay the iPass bill. Next is the accountant's report.
Yep, so everybody in their packet should have the September financials. Nothing unusual this month. The other thing I wanted to bring up was tax levy. I should have some estimated tax levy numbers, for formal discussion at the next board meeting. So,
I tried to
Highway
work on the
Commissioner Young?
tax levy earlier, the information wasn't out there. The reason she's bringing it up is because I brought it up.
And it's a timing situation where we're going to be discussing it in the November meeting and then passing it in the December meeting. So there's the timing requirements. Any other discussion, call it?
It's actually about the audit. I just want to make note that at the last meeting, on the agenda was to pass the, draft audit. And the motion in the approval was to pass the draft audit. So if you've done anything with the draft audit, like send it to the state or the county, that is not proper. So I just wanted to make you clear of that.
So, Attorney Steckler, isn't a draft audit a draft audit until it's passed?
It was passed as a draft audit,
But what does that mean? It was passed as a draft? Oh,
not as a final audit, as a draft, that there's still work to be done. That's what a draft would mean to me. That's what we use that terminology to mean in the past.
I mean, when you approve a draft, that would be, make it fine, especially when it's presented.
I'm just
I don't-
making note of it, that to me, it was
Especially for-
said draft, and to me, it doesn't mean final.
I do believe the final audit was issued. I think Sigurd sent out a final.
They
audit as
did.
well. Okay, yeah.
But it was approved as a draft audit, and it was on the agenda as a draft audit.
Which is what it is until it is approved. Okay,
Approved.
and we had previously seen it the month prior as a draft. And there were a variety of edits, and then after an edit or after an audit has been approved, it is no longer a draft audit. Any other questions? Trustee Robinson?
I just want to highlight, I appreciate the report. From a finance point of view, we are running very hot on our administration line, which includes our interim township administrator, as well as a lot of economic services. We are going to have to adjust and have an amended budget to address that budget line. Our salary budget line has sufficient funds to address that, because we are only running at 34% of full year budget so far through 6 months. The other thing I want to highlight is that due to the efforts of this board, as well as Jim Marino, as well as having a lot of economic on board, our legal bills and the legal fees are significantly less than they have been historically, and we're running at 40% of budget. Good effort all around. Transportation pace is close to 50%. So we are, all the other budget lines are fine. That's the only one that we're going to have to address from an amendment point of view, and we can talk about what that looks like.
So does everybody feel like the accounts report and questions have been asked and answered, or anything else you, Wes or Kelly, want to say?
And nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. Then agenda item 12, audit of bills and claims.
I'll make a motion to move to audit.
Thank you, trustee Geist.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Robinson. And a roll call vote, or any discussion? And a roll call vote.
Trustee Guys?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Okay, then on to agenda item 13, approval of bills and claims.
Question?
Trustee Geist.
I think when we went through it, the only thing, there was a handful, there was one question, it was about building stars, which was the cleaning services. Because there was 4 months worth of invoices on here, and went back and looked at last month's audit, they were not on. there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I might have confused it with the window.
And then, the only other thing that I had noted was there were signatures that were needed from Diane and from Jim.
And Jim's been out of town. He'll be back tomorrow. You can make a motion that, everything goes out after he's signed them. If you wish.
I think we're missing signatures from other people too, though, not just Jim.
There was one night for invoice that I believe needed Ed's signature.
Anything that's turned sideways, if needed signature.
Yeah, which I think all of them except for one had the little sticky.
You did. Yeah. Well, we know what happened.
I'll make a motion to approve the township and road district bills and claims as presented after all the appropriate signatures have been applied to the documents.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any, discussion? And, a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Guys? I'm sorry, did you say yes?
I
didn't
did, I'm
hear
so
you.
sorry.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. And Kelly can help us find the Ed one. Oh, there it is. Thank you. And then presentation from Lauterbach and Amen concerning digitizing the paper records. Jennifer?
Good evening. Take as little time as possible to go through our proposal, but you do have our proposal in front of you and one of your packets. Give you all a moment to find that, but just a little background on what we do, and I do have to admit, not to make light of the situation, but given our earlier discussion, folks have me sweating a little. As we move forward through the proposal, I know that there's a memo, for you on the front page. Kind of detailing and summarizing some of the information that we've set before you for your consideration. So we did have a consultation appointment with Supervisor Hewitt and Mr. Marino in regard to some of the needs that were here at the township in terms of your records management. During the consultation, I observed quite a large volume of records currently held here as offices. There's one office in particular that has around 50 cubic feet of records in there that are payroll and AP and things of that nature. So when you think cubic footage, think of a standard size banker's box. So there was a pretty copious amount of records that were in that office there. So our entire program provides what we'd like to say efficiency and time savings for you. I know we talked a lot earlier about the preservation of historical records, and I think also Trustee Hollowitz, you had mentioned having a plan in place and also the need for historical data. Also, there was conversations about data and information preservation. So our entire team is well versed on the Local Records Act, which would be applicable here to your government sector because you are responsible to your taxpayers and need to have that transparency as we discussed earlier. So those informations are taken into account when we provide our services. I think there's a memo and recommendation in here discussing the potential to go forward with digitization services, but also the potential for us to assist the township with also filing application amendments to the application on file with the Secretary of State's office and assisting with the disposal processes so that we make sure those are done in connection with the proper administrative code set forth by your applicable local records commission. These are all items that we are well versed in. We've been providing the service in the local government sector for the last 5 years. This is what we live and breathe every day. I know that sounds extremely tedious and boring, that paper is really our life. But when we look at paper, especially for a government agency, it's really the lifeblood of any government agency. And as you see before you, we never stop producing records. So that volume is never going to diminish unless we kind of take into account taking the steps now to spearhead a project to kind of reduce the amount of volume that you all have that is eligible for destruction. And then potentially digitizing the documentation that you have moving forward so that it is easily searchable. You're saving time and efficiency for your staff members, which is actually money saving on the front end and the back end. We've seen a lot of times that individual townships or pension funds, fire protection districts, what have you, will allocate a staff member to kind of handle and tackle this project. But a lot of times what we see is this is a free time type of a project. And most instances, nobody wants to go through paper except for myself. So in those instances, sometimes projects aren't finished or they're finished in part and never fully realized. And so we come in and within a year's time frame, we would like to digitize those records for you and get you into a point where instead of going through paper and boxes to search for your records, you're able to search those by keyword. That time and efficiency savings is something that also gives you accuracy and consistency of documentation, preservation of those records. And also, I don't mean to bring this up, and please knock on wood if you have this around you, but I've worked with many local governments that have unfortunately suffered some sort of a disaster. We live here in the Midwest, we get all 4 seasons, sometimes we get them all in one day, not to mention the potential for locusts and all of the things that we've experienced over the past year. But unfortunately, I've worked with a municipality in particular that actually had a flood, they had fire, and then they had another flood. They were connected to the fire department, which is also ironic. So in those instances, their records and that history and that preservation was actually wiped out because they didn't have a digital redundancy, which in most cases is kind of a saving grace if you're really relying on paper records in that structure. Most of the records before you have likely been born digital. So we had to type those up and print those out for you to have them. And in many cases, we can just preserve that digital item. But when you're in a dual role of having a hybrid record methodology of paper records from years before when mainly typing things up and printing them out wasn't possible, you now have your electronic records. So we kind of streamline that process, move everything to digital. We provide all of the services for you, the digitization needs. We apply the proper naming conventions for you. And then we provide a data migration where we actually bring those documents for you that we digitize. We bring that data and that filing. We assist with the data migration into the systems that you're currently using. We use the file indexing names that you're currently using. So it's really streamlining a consistent process at the end of the day. What you're then left with is a larger reduction in your paper records. You're freeing up more space here in your offices. And again, I come back to that word efficiency because efficiency really saves us time. That's really the only renewable resource that we can never get back. I understand and the money values here for this project specifically, and I'll go into the digitization services. You'll be able to see those costs on page 18 of your packet, but they're cost at $13,000 over the course of the year. Now, I realize that money is sometimes an issue for our budget, and so I would like to say if this is of interest to the board, to have the service come in and have us provide this project for you. We can also get a little creative with how we distribute those funds over the course of fiscal years to make this more palatable for what your budgetary allocations are. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Trustee Robinson.
Thank you. Very comprehensive presentation. Do we have a record system that we would put these digitized records into? Or is it
So we have a software program, OneDrive. That's the,
Microsoft OneDrive?
Yes.
service?
yes. So that's what our emails, it's our firewalled data storage.
I can help that conversation. A lot of government agencies are actually using the Microsoft products now. They're very secure. So having OneDrive actually may also allow us, if it's a cloud-based system, to upload actually remotely. So we can upload as data is file indexed. We use an automation software. So once that output file is provided, we can actually upload that remotely from our offices if allowable by the administration.
And Trustee Robinson.
Sorry, follow-on question. So you've done this for a year, it's all loaded in OneDrive. Our people have to then continue to feed it somehow, right? What process or what services do you help to get us to that point?
So that kind of goes back to my statement earlier is that most of the items that you have before you and that we're producing are currently digital. So we would just ramp up that system and get you into what we call the digital archive process. So we build up all of these files that are presently in paper, get them into a digital formatting for you, and then going forward, the maintenance of it is truly just saving it in the proper locations and applying those proper naming conventions. If you're receiving items by email, it's very simplistic to drag from Outlook products, which is Microsoft, into the OneDrive, and have those documents kind of stored all in the same place.
Good tip.
Trustee Geist.
So, so here's my concern. Once all of that data is digitalized, there is only so much space on the servers. This is not a corporation, right? So what are you anticipating the volume of that to be, the impact on our current data storage capacity? And we have to also then consider what expense comes with that as well. The presentation was excellent. I'm sorry if we frightened you. I think you did a great job. I think you could sell anything. So I see all of the values. There's no question of the values, but we also have to look at, is this going to require a server upgrade on our end? We probably would have to look into that. And also the data security. That is a concern for me because all that we hit one time, we could lose all of that data if once it's uploaded and then we don't have a paper version. So I think this is good information. This is a great beginning to a conversation that has to happen. But I don't think that we're gonna, we definitely need to know all of anytime there's a change management, you have to understand who all the players are gonna be impacted by it. This is something we haven't been really good about historically. When you make a change, who is it gonna impact? What are the pros and cons of every step of every person who would be impacted? Not just historically, but moving forward before we make a decision. So I think we need further discussion. But mostly I'm concerned about data, server data storage.
What, can I respond?
Sure, and I have some information on that too. So Jennifer?
So a couple different things. You're already utilizing OneDrive. So the change management aspect of it is more on the ongoing maintenance of that. And to help with that conversation, we actually put together, for many of our different agencies we work with, a records management policy. So I think Trustee Powell earlier had discussed, and I wrote this down because I found it, a plan in place for, I'm sorry, my apologies. A plan in place for consistency. And so that records management policy actually provides a plan in place for that consistency. And we also offer training on how things should be done.
The naming convention of files.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. So we don't drop everything to you and ask you to go ahead. We like to teach you how to fish instead of giving you the fish, as I like to say.
Okay.
Security as itself, no one at this point in time, unless you have the highest level of IT software, is going to be immune to the potential of ransomware attacks, which we're seeing a lot now, especially in the government agency sector. So I will
Water
say,
company just got hacked.
but what I will say to that point though, is you're utilizing Microsoft products, and Microsoft has been a company that has been around since the beginning of technology, has kind of existed in the computer realm. They have the ability to protect your data if you're using that. If you're using an on-site, on-prem server without that backing, I would have concerns just like yourself. I think another question you asked was about upgrading servers. So having a cloud-based system, you're actually just buying more in your plan for data. I don't know what your current capacity levels are, what your current plan allows for, but what I will say as Microsoft products itself, they're geared to be cost savings and very efficient in cost valuation. So in those realms of things, we could absolutely see, what actually needs to be digitized here, what's a value to be digitized here, and how does that currently affect what your plan is? Would that require an increase?
Yeah, just so we know, right? We
I
have to plan
absolutely-
for costs. So Thank
So
you.
we do have quite a bit of space in our server with a firewall, and I've had several conversations with Mr. Markwell about how safe and secure our computer system in cyber security is.
Getting a
Clerk
lot of
Polowitz?
spam email for having those securities in place.
My question is, where are the files that you're talking about? In my old office, right? That's full of files in
This one
there.
down at the hall.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see the ones down in the garage?
So I didn't have eyes on the ones in the garage. However, I did talk to Supervisor Hewitt about the volume that is currently in the garage, and we were pretty confident that we could work that in to this cost valuation.
Okay, because I have a lot in my office as well, that's just sitting there. So that, I don't know if that's in the quote as well, but I do have quite a bit. and the history. So these would be all behind a firewall. These are not accessible to the public. Like I know there's some systems like GoGov and all that, that people could just pull up what they want straight from that system.
Well, here's what could be done is once we have as much as we could be digitized, a lot of this could be put on the website. So there's a whole lot of ability to do that once we've decided what would be relevant, what would be helpful. Say somebody did a FOIA request, like the highway commissioner did of reconciled, documents that could just be immediately accessible. It would give us space back. And that's frankly something that we're extremely poor on is space in any way. So there's a whole lot of benefits
So
to,
we would physically put it onto the website. It's not just available like a different software would be, that you could put some that is private and others that can be open to the public and just do a search.
we
for what you're
could,
looking
we
for.
could, right now, we haven't had the opportunity to do that. So we've really not had any cleaning out of documents. There's quite a bit of cleaning out of documents, for many, many years.
Yes.
Decades, really. And we've, as you all know, have had a mold issue where quite a bit was really quick destroyed. Trustee
So
Robinson,
I think, I'm not sure you're answering her question is, are we sure that it's not gonna be publicly available? I think the answer is yes. It's managed under our Microsoft security, how we structure our security with Microsoft. Our particular OneDrive of Microsoft. And I can answer your question as well about how do you know there's more than one copy? That's built into the Microsoft solution, that they have multiple copies of data.
I know we use SharePoint.
Yeah, okay, so fine. I'm not trying to lecture you. I just want to answer. For that, that's built in, that it's as secure as we manage our Microsoft environment. And it's fully redundant. That's part of what Microsoft brings. So 5 years. So,
I just think we probably needed a little IT security audit.
well,
we actually been doing that with, in a variety of different ways with the last audit. We actually went through and did a whole lot of IT security. That's why a lot of things have changed in it recently.
Like I
like
said, I'm just getting a lot of
firewall.
spam email. I shouldn't be getting that if we have good controls in place. So if you could just, add that to the list of things to be.
Sure, and we have, and we also have a system in place where people are being sent emails so that you would learn or be educated on as to the things that you shouldn't be clicking on because of phishing attempts. So there's that's been built in.
Absolutely. As a former IT security professional, I would tell you I shouldn't be using emails. So. Okay, let's move on.
well,
Trustee Robinson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this. I mean, Jim Marino put the time into doing this assessment, came back, talked to multiple different vendors. I want to leave this township as functional and as cleaned up as possible at the end of our administration and secure. So I would like to make a motion, to proceed with the 13,000. 13,000 is what it would take, right?
Well, yeah,
So-
just looking for a budget.
So the budget is listed here and it's, subject to whether it's less or more time required. That's gonna perhaps change it, whether if like all of a sudden we find that there's a whole office that wasn't estimated, there was an estimated amount of unknown pieces. There was an estimated amount of things that we thought didn't need to be transitioned because they were probably just trash. And just need to be shredded. But you're very, very flexible as to when we could do what we could do according to the budget that we have. Is that correct, Jennifer? Thank you.
Did you put in a mountain?
Yeah, their proposal was 13,000. Jim Marino's memo said 13,000. So I'm sorry, I said yes, approved 13,000.
So, but so if you're looking at the current one, it says 24 is what the total would be. Because there's document conversion and there's inventory and destruction assistance. But Attorney Sackler, is there a requirement to put in a specific number or would there?
Well, for this, you probably wanted to, because that's a separate service. The inventory destruction assistance. So I think where the interim township administrator, I guess, recommends proceeding, especially now with the digital file conversion for the 13,
Document conversion.
and then it,
A part of that, though, is the inventory and destruction assistance, because there's quite a bit that we may not even digitize because it wouldn't be.
yeah,
No.
he said if so desired, you can accept the addition, but it's, yeah.
Okay, so trustee Robinson, how would you like your motion to?
Trustee, that's not questions.
Okay, so we would get into discussion after the motion has been decided what the wording would be.
All right, I'll amend the motion. I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure with Lauterbach and Allman digitization services not to exceed $25,000, including document conversion, inventory, and destruction assistance.
Thank you, trustee Robinson.
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Page. And now we're at discussion, trustee McGovern.
The full time. Or what
Yes.
you.
So
imagine
the
structure.
timeline is projected to last over 2 years, within a 2-year time frame. Now, that will also be subject to what your budget will allow for. So again, if we need to get creative, we're very flexible. If we need to parcel this out and work on certain pieces in certain fiscal years, we want to do so. In my opinion and suggestion and in my experience, going through and providing the inventory and disposal piece initially actually allows you to kind of have an eye on what's going to be left over and what's going to be applicable kind of for digitization. Their application that's on file with the state, a lot of times what I run into is it was filed for maybe a few years or sometimes even a few decades ago. And so those items need to be updated before we can actually dispose of items or even apply for the digitization and then disposal of items. So it kind of all works hand in hand, if you will, but once we do that inventory and destruction piece, we see what we're left with, and then the digitization can be a little bit more.
Is it in-house?
So we actually support everything to our offices to have digitized. We do that because we have software on staff or on site, and then we also have a couple of workforce scanners that this is what they do all day long. There's no jamming issues, it's really time saving and efficient. So we could take those out in batches, any documents that you might need access to while they're offsite. We would have a 24-hour turnaround time to locate those documents, scan them, and send them over to the individuals or hand deliver them depending on security and sensitivity.
So we shouldn't go out of budget.
Trustee
It's not a
McGovern.
manual. It's not a, there's not a manual.
Trustee
person doing
McGovern.
each scan. You said it's a machine.
So we have an individual feeding the machine. Yes.
Trustee McGovern.
Is there a fee for the 24-hour document retrieval?
No, that's our house.
Okay.
Trustee Page.
How is the inventory destroyed?
So the inventory is destroyed with, in connection with the applicable administrative codes for your local records commission. So if you want to get very specific on that, any items that have sensitive material on there need to be shredded with a 3/8 inch shredder.
Okay.
Nobody's going around measuring these things, but just for your reference, that is what is in the administrative code. We utilize a shredding company and we're an accounting firm, as you all are well aware of. We make sure to utilize a third-party vendor that comes on site, nothing is.
And
being-
this occurs, so when you take the records from this location over to your location, that's the last time this location will see them until they're digitized, nothing comes back here, everything is shredded and destroyed in your location.
The only items that would come back here would be under the discretion of the board, if you were to have us digitize, say, your agendas and your minutes from historical timeframes, because those are very difficult to recreate if the integrity of the paper document becomes an issue. Those items at this point in time, under the applicable administrative codes, are not eligible for destruction once they are digitized. You must keep those items along with a handful of items in paper. These are permanent retention items, any policies, ordinances, etc. Ordinances that are not attached to budget, those are eligible for destruction. But items of permanent retention, and those are determined by the Secretary of State's office.
And those probably should be in a fire
Trust-
safe storage.
Trustee
not just
Geis.
ground cabinets, right?
That's at the board and at the township's discretion.
But I mean,
Trustee Robinson.
Thank you. Again, the time frame may be sensitive to the fact that our term ends at the end of sometime in
months.
2025.
Not that we're counting.
Attorney Sackler, can we make a commitment to this sort of activity that goes past the end of our term?
We can, but the engagement letter would probably have to have some sort of termination that you would have to say that any future board would be able to say no, to stop it. You couldn't bind the next board.
Mhm.
And nor could you bind them to expend the money necessary.
May I ask a question?
Trustee Geist,
Is it possible, since we have talked about parsing this, could we just say, could we commit to the 11,475 and say, let's start the inventorying process and see where we're at and see how long that takes? Because then we can decide about the conversion. I mean, do you know what I mean? That we're only committing to the 12 versus committing the next board to 25. And who knows, the conversion, this inventory could happen. Long shot, it would happen before April, but it could. Right?
so, isn't there a little bit of a, once you start one, you're kind of doing the other automatically to some extent, or is there
No,
any kind of staggered?
we actually parceled the service off so that you could pick and choose what items on there you felt were of priority and what you'd like to allocate your budget dollars towards. If I can respond to the time frame to just get the inventory and disposal piece done. Unfortunately, a couple of different occasions, there's document submissions to the Secretary of State's office and the archives. At those timeframes, that timeframe is out of our hands. The Local Records Commission, and in years past, they could cancel 2 consecutive meetings and they only meet once monthly. They canceled 2 consecutive meetings, we're delayed out 3 months, and unfortunately, because it is out of our hands at those points in time, I could not specifically say that within 7 months by April that this project would be completed.
But we can't commit the next board to this either, but I feel like the most important thing is an inventory. We don't even know what we have in these boxes, right?
Yeah, I
What are your
think
thoughts on that?
having an inventory done is absolutely, I think of the utmost importance for a couple different reasons. One, your application, which is on file with the Secretary of State, notes all of the different categories of records you have and how far those records go back. If that does not align with what you currently have, there could be some issues there. The other reason that is important is because you can't dispose of records if they're not listed on an application or if an application does not exist.
Yeah, it
So
sounds
you're
like this
kind
is
of
more important.
handcuffed.
And if this isn't done, how do you know what you want to convert? So.
So the other piece is that do you all believe that we're as a country entity going to go towards paper or we're going towards digitization?
I don't think that's the question at all. We
So,
want to do document conversion, but from a spend perspective and what we can approve tonight, it makes sense, and I think that we're on the same page. Let's get the information inventory, and then we can come back to a meeting and say, okay, now we want to do a document conversion and approve that spend. And that may be after us, but let's get this first work done, because this is the most critical.
So
And she's saying it can take months just to get that one document approved.
100% agree. So it's not even possible. Do you think it's even possible within the realm of possibility to get to this 24,000 within 2 years? Or within the next 6 months, 7 months?
No, I
No,
don't think
that's fine, we're
so.
not- That's not what I'm suggesting.
What I
I thought it was 20. That's so weird. It sounds like our.
What I could potentially suggest to the board is digitizing certain documents, especially those that would have historical value and be difficult to recreate should a disaster happen here, such as your board meeting agendas and your minutes and things of that nature. You could go forward and digitize those items. There's a smaller volume of those items. And then in conjunction with that, we could simultaneously be conducting the inventory here and kind of put a priority level on that to push that as far as we possibly could and have all of those documents submitted to the Secretary of State's office so that should the next board not choose to move forward with our services, at least you'd have the ball rolling to
Yeah.
get staff members there at
It's
the
a great
offices.
compromise.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You want to make the motion?
I'll make
So what would you suggest is the number for that type of a situation? So it wouldn't be 25, it would be,
We're starting with the 11,475.
no, they're two different pieces.
All of
So,
our meeting agendas, and that's already online. So
All of the
that's-
historical meeting agendas and
It's
minutes
on-
are
No,
already
they're
digital.
not,
How far back?
no,
How far back?
Boxes.
they're not, because you just look at our website, there's quite a bit of there's quite
I
a bit.
don't know if the board meetings from 10 years ago being online are as important as the ones in those last 4 years. I don't know that there's, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know that that's a priority.
But that's-
To your point, I can understand that we're being available to the public in that nature and available online might not be the priority.
Yeah.
But preserving those historical documents in the event of a flood, fire, peace, famine, locusts, et cetera. Those items being in a digital preservation might be of a priority.
Or a request for them. They have to be available.
So would you change that number from 24,000 to 15, 18?
In my opinion, we could go ahead and stick with the inventory and disposal assistance portion of the project. The project management fees would stay intact. And then also, we could go ahead and move forward with a $7,000 budgetary allocation for the digitization. I think in 7 months, we can make some great headway with that.
So we're still at 19,000. We're only saving 5 that way.
It's very difficult to know at this moment without really seeing an eyes-on volume of exactly what we'd be digitizing to place the dollar value.
So that's why I think it's fair to approve an inventory assessment. And then at another meeting, you'll be able to come back to us and say, look, guys, this is what we're working with. And then we can come up with that number and approval. Is that reasonable? Can the board agree on that? Okay. So I'm gonna make a
I
motion.
was just gonna ask, I'm sorry.
Clerk Follow,
Where is this coming out of the budget? What line item?
We'll find it. We'll find it in the charts.
I get it.
Do you have an idea? You ready to hear which line?
1,600 frankly was
Yeah.
the main one that I was thinking of. But it could come out of. There's a variety of places it could come out of. Trustee Robinson.
Yeah, we're gonna have to adjust 1,600 anyways.
Yeah.
Because of where we are spent for the interim township administrator, so it would make sense to include it in the budget for that.
Okay, so then I'm gonna make a motion right now to engage. Okay, with Allerbach and Ammon for the inventorying and destruction assistance for the amount of $11,475, with then hopefully a report coming back in the next couple of months with where we're really at as far as what we would be looking at a real number too with the document conversion, but we're gonna do this in a phasal approach as you had recommended.
So if-
That's that's my motion.
and she recommended a $7,000.
She recommended, no, she said that. No. the ones that
Document
we found-
conversion.
No, that's not my motion. My motion, sorry, I apologize, let me resend. My motion is to approve the first phase of inventorying and destruction assistance of the documents. Through that, through that process, I'm hoping we're gonna learn what we're really working with. And then come back and approve the document conversion. We have to know what we're working with. I don't think we can approve both right now. I think we have to know what we're working with and know what the volume is that we're gonna be converting. What if it's more? What if it's a lot less and she can give us a lower quote? Wouldn't that be great?
And so there is a whole lot of flexibility as to
Well,
how
my
much
motion
we're being
stands. That's
charged.
the motion I'm making. Can I get a second?
That's fine.
I'll-
Trustee
I
Robinson.
will second and I'm not sure if I can amend your motion, but I think this commitment cannot extend past the end of our term.
Correct.
So I don't know. if
First phase.
This first phase cannot extend. Right, so it has to be end dated by the end of the term, by the end of our term.
But it,
Sorry,
it theoretically can, it just has to have, the engagement letter has to have, like, meant most, would have a termination clause.
okay,
You could
but
terminate,
does-
it just can't bind the next board completely and have a penalty for canceling or something. They wanted, if a new board came in and said, no, we don't want to do anything with our documents at all, we want everything to just stop. Then they could
Which
just
is,
say, right,
it's
but
unlikely, but.
just in theory, right? So you can't, so they would be able to terminate without necessarily incurring a penalty. That's the key. Yes.
So
Okay, so we have a first from trustee Geis and a second from trustee Robinson, and then discussion, clerk Paulus.
So based off of what you're saying, you can approve the entire process of what you want to do or what you want to have happen, even though it's beyond, but just have that escape clause
Yeah, but
for the future to say that they're not bound by this. But if you wanted to spend the $25,000 to start doing the whole process, that is an option.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
I think it's still better,
Trustee
I think
Geis.
it's better to have this assessment, to have this analysis completed, so we know what documents we're really converting though, because the number may be very different. And I
Sure.
don't like surprises, and I don't think the next board would like surprises, but I also like savings. So if she goes through it, we realize there's just a lot of crap sitting in those boxes, and there's a lot that can be destroyed. Wouldn't that be amazing if we can save our taxpayers those dollars?
And get some space back.
Thank you.
Okay, so any more discussion? And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Geis?
Yes.
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Page?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
and
Jennifer.
Rock and Evan. We look forward to working with you more. Okay, discussion about the 2025-2029 elected officials compensation. You all have this, again, where we've been at in the past, and where the county is, as well as the, thank you.
Right.
There's nothing to discuss. I've been looking at
Thank
things
you.
and
Yeah.
we're across the board. Everybody is pretty much, you know. I
Trustee
don't know.
Page, anything more?
I think it should stay the same.
Yeah, I think everything should stay the same.
Okay, and there's a resolution that TOI recommends that we do, as opposed to last time it was essentially motion made. So this resolution would make it a better way of raising or changing or saying whichever salaries are gonna be what they will be. So you have the data, whether you want to do any inflationary changes, whatever you wish to do,
This
you
is
have all the
This
information.
is public service.
Yep.
Okay, any other
Anyone who's
discussion?
using this as a career or their like retirement is this, they're in the wrong line.
Trustee Geist, any other pieces that you'd like to go with, trustee Geist? Okay, trustee Robinson,
I just want to make sure, so there will be a resolution on the next board meeting specifically to address this issue.
yes, but
Okay.
we would really be great if we knew the direction of which you all wanted to go with regards to numbers. So if you all want to have the resolution basically saying to continue where we're at
Yep.
with the exact numbers, no inflationary changes,
None.
and that's what you all would like, okay, then that's
Sorry,
good.
Ed, did you want?
Any other discussion?
Yes, I do.
Assessor Trowbridge,
I think that there's been discussion of positions being this upcoming election and the candidates that are running and the background that they have running. And I'm talking specifically about the assessor's office. I think that I've been in this field for over 40 years. Over 30 years as your township assessor. We're going to come back with a candidate who's going to be running, who has taken the minimum amount of courses and has no experience whatsoever in operating a township assessor's office. To that end, I am suggesting that we create 3 tiers based on their experience and what they can bring to the table as far as as an office, and I'm recommending that we adjust those salaries to reflect the experience that these people are bringing to the table for their position.
That makes sense.
Do you have any suggested numbers?
As a matter of fact, the information I'm providing here, the information I'm providing here is actually a offshoot of what was approved by the township of Naperville 4 years ago. And as interestingly, as far as whether it's binding or not, I would respectfully suggest that
current council was the group that actually put this, put most of this language together. And, to that end, we think that, it would be, most appropriate to, pay. I think in the private sector, I think if you're at what we're actually doing here as a government, is we're acting like the private sector, and we have somebody who's left. You don't turn around and hire somebody that comes fresh off the street and pay them top dollar.
You're right.
And I appreciate the money that I've received from, this board and prior boards. But I think that, when it comes to a situation like this, where if somebody comes in with lesser experience, I think the salary different.
That's 1000% correct. There's no company where you come.
Trustee guys,
Somebody with 30 years experience and somebody with, taking classes. You're right. It should be a tiered approach. There should be nobody who would, if someone else were to run for this office and win, they should not be making the same compensation that you've made after 35 years of service, 40 years in the industry.
Clerk Politz.
And I would also add to that is based off of your knowledge and experience, we save so much in attorney's fees because you are able to put the packets together for any appeals. Where if someone just has an introductory class, which is really all that it's labeled as, then they're going to need a much higher level of legal expenses to be able to. So it just doesn't make sense. It's not it's apples to oranges.
It's important for the taxpayers to understand.
Trustee Geist.
I would just agree with Alex.
And our rules say that we raise our hands.
So, thank you.
Any other discussion? Highway Commissioner Young?
Yeah, I think I passed this out last week. I just want to show you the Fisher job. Compared to the other highway commissioners and what they're compensated. We don't have the most money, but we're almost one of the least expensive on a per mile basis. And you add to that, we pick up how many people, the number of miles that do that. And I'll tell you, that's a huge undertaking.
Would you recommend a tiered approach as well?
Well, I think it's a little different. John's got more experience. Mine is you gotta do the job. I don't care who comes in. This is what you gotta do. So, John's role, I think has more impact on the dollars. Mine, if you're not doing your job, the residents. So you'll learn quickly. You don't have a choice. I wouldn't object to that. I mean, you could put together a qualification.
If I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Just the idea for the tiered assessor was based off the specific credentials that are issued by the Illinois Department of Revenue and otherwise in other organizations that are mentioned specifically in the property tax code and the type of educational credentials that you would have. And that was the issue. That was the thought in Naperville, and that would be the thought in this. And so there's those specific credentials. The highway code doesn't have the same type of thing. The property tax code specifically talks about differing compensation for various.
But if we're
That's
talking
all.
about what the pay increases are, it's worth having a conversation about.
Yeah, it's more, I don't know if it would be legal to have the same type of tiered system for the highway commissioner or any other position other than the assessor. That's, you can't necessarily, there's one township in
But we
Cook
can make a
County.
decision whether to increase the salary or not. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So that's cause for discussion.
Absolutely. And of course, you're not deciding the salary necessarily for any current officer, right? It's for the next whoever, but
We
that's,
could decide that.
Trustee
next term
Geist.
is-
yeah.
Mhm.
And that's what the expectation of the job would require, whatever that compensation you're setting.
Trustee McGovern.
And then I have a question. Hypothetically speaking, if you had a highway commissioner in office that the public was not approving of, is it easy to remove that?
No,
No.
No way.
No. Sorry.
I love those other days.
It was too easy.
It's good to laugh, you guys.
You don't have to vote on no confidence. You
Huh?
don't have to vote on no confidence. Why would we get you?
No.
It's a joke.
It was a joke.
It's a joke.
It won't hit the minutes.
I was reminded
There was a
Joke.
I complimented him this week.
Johnson.
I called and said, hey, what's happened with my sidewalks in my subdivision? I went for a walk and they were already pouring the sidewalks. And I said, he's good.
I hope you told that to all your
I
neighbors.
did.
Get all your cronies to come in and fire.
Any other
I
discussion?
just wanted to lay out that Lisle is kind of unique. It's got a fair number of miles to go. Everybody up there, you can offer more services. And if you look at the cost per mile, and we're right down there as low as you can get on those. I mean, it's really not. I should mention what municipalities run up when they're doing the cost per mile per road. They're in the hundreds, they're over 105, 150. And we're much lower. There's lots of different reasons for that, and most of it's just overhead. We have a city doing paving a new road, they got more engineers out there than you can shake a stick at. We've always done that, and the machinery that we've done, so. But I think that the person who sits in this chair in the next term, his compensation should be within that higher 2 or 3, and they're gonna get raises, so then I just leave it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I don't think there's a motion.
Okay, this doesn't require a motion. What we do require is to get to a resolution next month. And so please let us know, and Attorney Steckler, what we're willing to do with drafting the resolution so that we can come to it with a resolution that we can agree to.
Trustee Roberts, do you think we should have like a budget? Because it impacts the budget, so should we have a budget meeting to discuss?
Trustee
that?
Geist.
And if I may, just make sure in this draft that was handed out, if these are all the benefits that are that apply, like insurance, et cetera, let us know. It's important that those are all spelled out in this ordinance for the elected officials. So
Thank you for putting that together.
Thank you. Okay, if you have any other discussion items for that, please talk to each other and we can get that into the attorney so that we can make a motion at the next meeting. Supervisors report, you have it in writing. There's 740 families that were fed in September, 1,856 people. General assistance had 32 cases, spending $20,275.11, 251 caseworker calls, 11 RTA registrations, 198 rides with 663 rides for the full PACE program, 20 passport applications. In addition, on the back of the, in your packets, there is the information for health insurance renewals. That's gonna come up at the next meeting. When I'm looking at the agenda of the, December and the November meetings, there's 28 days between the meetings. So, what I would suggest, is that sometime in October, we could have a regular or a special meeting for, to talk about the levy and to propose a levy, as well as going through so that in November, or in December, when we actually meet on the 11th, we don't have to do a special meeting in December to approve the levy. But we have to have 30 days in between November 13th and December 11th. There's not right now. So I would suggest something in either late October in order to make the 30 days so that we can do the levies in December at the regular December 11th meeting. So just a suggestion on that front. This afternoon, the audit was started for the next cycle. So Lauterbach and Amen and Martha Trotter and Thickich and myself all met and we discussed the timing of the next audit. The portal has been opened. The initial requests for that next audit have already been started and asked for. So that's where the audit is at. For the 23-24 audit,
Levy is 20 days,
20 days?
draft and then town will approve.
Okay, never mind then. I thought it was 30, like the
It's
budget.
budget.
That's 30. Okay, great.
November's fine.
Yep, so normal meeting in November. Sorry, thank you. I was on the 30-day timeline. Okay, then, the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation. Each year from September 15th to October 15th, the United States observes National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the people, heritage, cultures, and innumerable contributions of those whose ancestors were indigenous to North America, including those who came from Central America, South America, Spain, and the Caribbean. And whereas what began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Johnson was expanded by President Reagan in 1988. Whereas the date, September 15th, is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for the Latin American countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Additionally, Chile and Mexico celebrate their Independence Days on September 16th and September 18th. Whereas we recognize and honor the many ways that Hispanics and Latinos have enriched the fabric of our society, and we dedicate ourselves to address the lack of equal access to opportunity that many still face. And whereas Hispanic Heritage Month is an opportunity to speak with one voice, acknowledge the crucial role that Hispanics, Latinos play in shaping the future of our country and the world, and celebrate and recognize Latinos in our community. Hispanics need to be heard, seen, and valued, and are more likely to engage with individuals or organizations that actively invest in and celebrate their contributions to this country. They are driving prosperity and progress. Now, therefore, is it be it resolved that on this 9th day of October 2024, the Lisle Township Supervisor's Office does hereby proclaim September 15th to October 15th, 2024 as Hispanic Heritage Month and encourage all residents to celebrate our vibrant and unique history. We recommit ourselves to a shared future of healthy, peaceful, safe, and sustainable communities for all. Next is review and approve of the 2024 9/11 September Lisle Township meeting minutes and the 2024 10/1 special Lisle Township meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 11th, 2024 and the October 1st special Lisle Township meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Page and trustee McGovern. Any other discussion? And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Page.
Yes.
Trustee McGovern.
Yes.
Trustee Guys.
Yes.
Trustee Robinson.
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt.
Yes. Okay, then, any old business?
Yes.
Trustee Geis?
Yes, in old business, because we talked about it, and I know we talked about it ad nauseum today, but I just want it very clearly on the agenda that the board is requesting an Excel spreadsheet breakdown of grants applied, dates, awarded, date, and an itemization of the purchases per grant. So if we applied for X grant on March 23rd, and this is the name of the grant and the date we were awarded it and the dollar amount, and then underneath it, each of the items, so that we can see the deduction.
Yes.
You can create a formula to see and if you want me to help you with this, I will. You know, and create the deduction, so we see where we're always at, a rolling balance of what has come off of each of those grants and what we're left working with. And then we don't have to, it'll just be so much easier. And I love doing formulas. I'd be happy to help, but, I want that on for old business. And then it has come up again and again about this disparity in how we're treating people. It concerns me that Claire Goldenberg still feels like we are not being honoring of the Jewish people. I think it's important to understand that Hispanic heritage is a natural cultural holiday. It is not derived from Lisle Township. We don't create the holiday. We didn't set it. We didn't set the terms of it. We're just making a proclamation in support of it. We don't celebrate Easter, we don't have proclamations for Easter, Kwanzaa, Christmas either. So this is a national cultural holiday. I just think that's important to mention that as part of full business. And also, we spend an hour before each meeting, whether it's on Monday or Wednesday, in the audit of expenditures. So the suggestion that we don't spend money and take care of our priorities, which is our constituents of Lisle Township. We need to stop, we need to squash that because we definitely are spending money. We had to stack this snake of expenditures. So we're definitely spending the money. And I would challenge anyone who continues to believe that we are not spending the money that we have been entrusted to spend, but also spending it responsibly. And that's all I have for this.
Any other old business? New business? Trustee Page?
Yeah, I actually learned something that was kind of upsetting to myself. I learned that I'm not gonna say you.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, I kind of have to say you because the emails don't go to the public. We saw pictures on social media of your proposed slate that they were at the township, what was it, the MTA recently. It's an event that we've gone to as a board before, all right? And we weren't told about it this year, but we see pictures of your proposed slate of candidates at this event.
I feel like it's
On the
election
4th.
tampering.
Right, it's, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but I would say it's the ultimate of disrespect that you would bypass
Yeah.
this sitting elected board.
Yep.
And bring them to an
Without an
event
invitation.
that they had no business being at because they are not elected township officials.
And
They're not
the second-
township. They're not township employees either.
And it's the second time because we weren't invited to the meeting that she was at where she had left the meeting.
It's pretty irritating.
Yeah.
That these invitations go through your computer and you don't bother to tell the board about them. You pick and choose who you're going to invite, and that is just an absolute disrespect to this board.
Any other new old
Yes.
business,
Yeah,
new
of course.
business?
Of course.
Yes,
Clerk
Well,
Collins.
I can do what I want.
a week, not this past Monday, but the Monday before, it turns out that all elected officials were invited to a conservation elected official forum. I was invited in a different, for a different reason, and, Commissioner Young was invited specifically too. 1,400 elected officials were invited. So I know when I went that we should have all been invited, and because you did receive this invitation that, again, you did not pass on. You did not invite your new slate, at least to this, but you did not invite any of us. So, and then I learned even the week before that, there was the career and job networking and career event that you were invited to, and we were invited to, but you didn't pass that on. And so Trustee Geist ended up, finding out about that and able to get some people there too. You are not doing your job with promoting Lisle Township, because I represented Lisle Township at the meeting I went to. Trustee Geist represented at the Career Network Center, excuse me, and represented Lisle Township. Nobody from this board, maybe you, represented at something that we all should have been invited to. This is continual. This has been happening for 4 years.
And I thought we discussed it.
So
the event that
one
you-
person at a time, Trustee Geist, Clerk Pollitt, are you done?
Yes.
Okay, and
Last
to
year,
be
it's my turn. I
clear,
raised my hand. We didn't ask for a rebuttal from you yet. Last year, at the event that you did not invite us to, or notify any of us to attend, which is the event where you left under the influence. we thought then you would understand the importance of sharing that information with us so that we could attend and represent the township. We all had a tenet of being out in the community and making and raising awareness. But you are intentionally, willfully, in willful ignorance, keeping us out of these events where we can be out meeting with constituents and connecting with other community leaders. And that, Supervisor Hewitt, is just another reason why I would continue with my vote of no confidence for you, because you are ineffective and intentional in how you mistreat this board. It's completely disrespectful. Rebut away. I can't wait to hear what all the reasons are. However, they are.
So I am not an all-knowing human being that knows whom has not been invited and who was invited. I was not asked to invite everyone. All of those
Oh,
entities
you are.
have
It
all
always
of your
is. You're
information. That is all very public information. All of your emails are very public.
You've wasted enough of our time.
And there, I don't have a slate. I do not have a slate.
They paid $55 a person to attend that event.
I do not have
They each
a
paid
slate.
$55 to attend that event.
I do not
Oh, yes,
have
you do.
a slate.
And when
Do
people
not
vote,
have
and when
a
people vote,
slate.
when I vote, when I make a
Trustee-
motion to support people to be able to speak, and they all vote the same, and they're looking at you, it's just like, bang away. I have 3 minutes on the floor. I have 3 minutes, start the clock. I have 3 minutes, you can start the clock. I have 3 minutes and I'm not
I had
done.
3 minutes and I wasn't done speaking. Okay, and you've already had your turn. Executive, any other reports of elected officials?
That wasn't elected.
That was in new business.
That was new business.
Yeah, so any reports of elected officials?
Well, I was waiting for you to rebut. You started to give it before. What was the reason why you didn't include us?
Before you interrupted me, and again,
I
I am not,
apologize for the interruption.
all
But
of
give
your
us a reason.
emails are on
No,
on the
They're
website,
not.
every entity.
So did your slate have the email? Or how did they get notified to come?
All
saw it
of
as a
your
public
emails
event?
are on the
Answer the
website,
question.
and the public is
Did your
allowed to
slate-
go
did
to
your handpicked
events.
Slate that you included as.
The
guidance
public
manual
is
committee,
allowed to go to
How did they know
events.
about it?
The public is allowed to
Because you
know about
invited them and made them
events.
aware.
But we aren't. The
You
public
all are,
is, but we aren't.
Metropolitan Township
We don't
officials
know that.
have
Trustworthy.
your
You
email.
are not trustworthy.
Yes, they have your
Yes, you're not
emails, if
trustworthy.
nothing is being
You're
taken
not
off.
trustworthy, and anybody who you slated is now not trustworthy. That will be made very clear.
No one has been slated.
Yes, they have been slated by you, Diane.
Okay, any other
From them to her.
new or or any other
The
report?
ineffectiveness will be passed on. Anyone associated with you should be aware of that today.
Is anybody going to discuss the special meeting that we had?
Oh,
was
yeah.
not turned in. The payment was not submitted. We had a.
No,
No, the special
Oh, yeah,
meeting,
sure.
the special meeting that we had.
to interview candidates.
That's,
look to-
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
24.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no. I think,
No, the past special meeting.
I think.
Did
Assessor
anyone
Trowbridge,
attend that meeting?
Right.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think you're trying to say that was incredibly disrespectful to the candidates
Mhm.
who showed up and to the board members who showed up, that the supervisor was not present, had not informed people she wasn't gonna be
Right.
here. And we had to make our best effort, be respectful to the men who had come to spend time and learn about our township.
Right.
And try not to chase them away,
Right.
by not having a professionally run meeting at that time,
Yeah.
so.
Trustee Robinson, I couldn't say.
Thank you for that.
It was, nothing was prepared. You hadn't.
You
told
couldn't even, you didn't even
anybody.
bother to tell us you weren't coming,
We
right?
had
You couldn't even.
a phone call after 3:00.
Are we still in old business?
No.
No, we're in new business.
All right, I would like.
We're in
to-
elected officials report.
Okay, I
Is where we
thought we
are.
were still in new, because I would just like to, because I didn't think that was a report. I'd like to reiterate our vote of no confidence.
Any other elected officials report?
Sorry, elected officials, yes.
Trustee
I
Robinson.
would like to make an elected officials report. I would like to make, he's not here, but I would like to make professional, personal note of thanks to Jim Marino for all the work, the dedication, his assistance to the township. We are in such a better place
Yeah.
because of his efforts, his patience, his
Yes.
perseverance,
He saved us so much money too.
and he saved
Oh,
so
my
much
God, yes.
money. Right?
Absolutely.
So he's not here, but I want to publicly thank him for his efforts. And just say what a great add he was to the township, and I'm just sorry he decided he's got to move on.
I have the only
Trustee
report I have
Page.
is the garden. It's not doing as well this year as it has in years past. We've lost our cucumbers, which like added a lot of weight to it. The heat's not helping, the lack of rain isn't helping, hose water is fine, but sky water is better. But still, we're doing fine. We're gonna come in with a couple of £1,000 this year.
Highway Commissioner Young.
Well, thanks. Tomorrow, and the next day, we're going to put temporary speed bumps on Ivanhoe. We'll see how that works. I expect to get a lot of calls one way or the other. The other thing is, I started work on the levy and I had saved a significant amount of money for the fuel tanks. The fuel tanks are gonna come in downsizing. They're gonna come in much less expensive, so I'll be able to reduce the levy. Like half a million.
I love.
Good deal.
Yeah,
Awesome. There's just fuel filled more often.
well, no, well, there will be fuel more often, but I had no idea how to come up with an estimate for replacing the fuel tanks. So what I did, Lisle was replacing it, and they went out and had an engineering study and all this done, they came up with this budget. I said, well, I'll cut a couple $100,000 off that, and I'll use that and save back. Well, then we go through the process, we can cut down the size of the fuel tanks. We can put them above ground, we don't have to go underground, and that's it. That's assuming we don't run into monumental efforts, and we pull out the old one.
Because they're. low.
They're underground.
How long have they been down there? So you literally don't know what you're gonna find once they start digging them up.
The useful life, the useful life of those tanks was 35 years. We were 42. So we just keep our fingers crossed and get this out.
Clerk Wallace.
I would like to recognize, in addition to it being National Hispanic Heritage Month, and it was Rosh Hashanah, I would like to recognize something close to my heart. It's Italian American Heritage and Culture Month for the month of October. And to Steve, my husband, it's a Polish American Heritage Month as well this month. It's Filipino American History Month. German American Day was October 6th. And probably more important than all is that it's John Trowbridge's birthday today. So we want to recognize that. And then on a more sad note and hopeful note is our thoughts and our prayers should be with the people of Florida as they are being impacted again with another hurricane. And they are literally fighting for their lives and
Lisa's
their
sister is
safety.
there. Lisa's sister-in-law, like the entire interior of their house was destroyed by the last one, and now they've got another one bearing down on them.
Right.
Yeah.
So our hearts are with you. I'm sure they're not listening in, but let it go out there in the universe.
Thank you.
It looks like it has hit, it has landed, right now it's at level 3, category 3. That's what's in right. But it's Siesta Key. It's landed.
And they just get hit too.
That's our place. We're in Longboat Key.
Okay, any other reports of elected
Thank you.
officials? Okay, does somebody want to make a motion to go into executive session?
Make a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Illinois Municipal Code Section 2C1 for the purpose of discussing candidates for the position of the interim township administrator.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Robinson and trustee McGovern. Any other discussion and roll call vote?
Trustee Robinson?
Yes.
Trustee McGovern?
Yes.
Trustee Geis? Trustee Page?
Yes.
Supervisor Hewitt?
Yes.